We expect cavemen reactions, right? Grunt, food, sex, angry, sad, video games, basketball, right? And so if we're asking men to show up in a more complex way as a human being, like we know that they can be, we also have to make sure that we're showing up the same way. Hello, beautiful people. I hope all is well. I hope all is well. My name is Allison, certified dating and relationship coach, and I primarily work with busy professional women to move them from frustrated with dating to happily married. And I've done that for over 250 women and one man to boot. So let us get into today's conversation, being vulnerable. There's a lot of talk and conversation around women in this day and age wanting men to be more emotionally sound, emotionally aware, more communicative, all of this flowery language, which really means that they just want them to be aware of their own emotions and be able to express it in a respectful way. This is the problem. Many of us say that we want a man like that, but when we actually come across, which may be, I don't want to say rare, but not very popular, not average. When we come across a gentleman who is like that, it takes us off guard because we just don't expect it. We expect cavemen reactions, right? Grunt, food, sex, angry, sad, video games, basketball, right? And so if we're asking men to show up in a more complex way as a human being, like we know that they can be, we also have to make sure that we're showing up the same way. Women are notorious for being talkers, but that doesn't mean that you are communicating effectively. Just because you're using a lot of words, a lot of big words, right? Just because you know how to cut somebody down with your words, you know how to be strategic, you know how to be argumentative, it doesn't mean that you're communicating in an effective way in order to get to a resolution or get to an end result. And so talking about vulnerability and having that expectation from the gentleman that we date and the gentleman that we commit to and the gentleman that we marry, that means that we also have to show our vulnerability to let them know that it is indeed a safe space. Because historically, it has not been. Historically, it hasn't been a safe space for men to be inquisitive. It hasn't been a safe space for men to be expressive. They're called names. They're called wussies. They're called all those types of things that you guys are already familiar with, right? It comes across as weak. And so now that we're in this new age, where now it's coming across as stronger and a more preferred method in the way that we want men to communicate, that's a major shift from 30, 40, 50 years of how they've experienced life and how their fathers and their forefathers have experienced life. So that means that we have to create that safe space for them, at least initially, and we hope that they meet us halfway and continue to foster a safe space for the both of us to be able to express ourselves in an effective way that's not seen as being divisive or argumentative or difficult, but just letting folks know how we legitimately feel. So, ladies, I need you to start with your vulnerability. I need you to share something that I like to call it as a little bit more than shallow. So shallow stuff is the weather. Shallow stuff is maybe you had a little bit of a tough day at work. Shallow stuff is, lightly some of your goals and dreams and aspirations. That's just the surface. What do you do for fun? That kind of thing, right? I want you to go a little bit deeper. How do you know that it's a little bit deep and not too deep? So a little bit deeper looks something along the lines of, I probably would not tell this to the average person on the street, but it's not anything that I'm ashamed of. So if it came out, there would be no embarrassment attached to it. You couldn't throw it in my face and I would feel awkward about it, right? Because I also want to make sure that we're not trauma bonding and trauma dumping, where you're just overwhelming people with a whole bunch of information they have absolutely no business knowing as a stranger. They are a stranger, right? And so you're getting to know someone. You don't want to dump on them and push them away. You also don't want to trauma bond, which means you share all of these extremely traumatic experiences. They share these extremely traumatic experiences. And now you feel like you're in love because you've bonded together on this bad thing when that's not how you really that's not how you really feel about each other specifically, right? Does that make sense? So a little bit more than shallow. So that might look like, for instance, I had a client who shared with me in passing. It didn't really have to do with what we were talking about, but this is a perfect example. So she shared with me in passing that she has a much younger brother, a teenage brother, and he came out recently as gay. And she was worried about how they would treat him in school. I mean, we're in New York, so it's not too terrible, but still, you never know who you might come across on the train. As he gets older, he's going out more, he's by himself. And so she was worried about his well-being as a gay Black boy here in New York, right? And so that would be something that I would consider a little bit more than shallow. I'm not talking about anything greatly deep, like maybe why he's gay, if there's a reason beyond biology. He went through this experience. I went through the same thing. This person did that to me. They also did to him. And ever since then, he's ever been. No, right? This is a fact. This is something my family is experiencing. This is a concern that I have. There's no way that anyone could turn this around and throw it back in your face and you'd be offended. It wouldn't make sense. But it is deeper than the weather and what's going on with the Knicks and your next vacation spot and your promotional meeting tomorrow and whatever else in that arena. Does that make sense? So you do have to offer some vulnerability. You as a woman have to open up so that this person knows that it's safe, so that they can say, oh, I know what that experience is like too. I went through this with my sister. I had this with a friend. We didn't know how to react at first, but now we're cool. Whatever that might look like, you have to open up the space because this hasn't been a place where historically they've been allowed to be open. They've been allowed to be free. Have you listened to guys' conversations, like quietly? There's many times between the bestest of friends, a lack of depth. And so if you want that depth and you want to be able to build towards it, you want to be able to see if he has the capacity to do so, then you have to make sure that you are showing that you are a comfortable, safe space, that you can share freely, you can accept what they're saying, you are listening to them closely. You're not listening to respond, you're listening to understand, you're asking questions when reasonable, you are not interrupting, you are not throwing in your own stories so that you can, because people think that, oh, I'm just trying to show them that I can relate. Sometimes that's not how it's perceived. Sometimes it's perceived as you're making it all about you. So hold your own stuff until there's a pause, until it makes sense. Don't cut these people off. Allow them to express themselves appropriately so you can begin to build the necessary rapport so you can go in the direction of fostering an environment where you can be your authentic self. Make sense? All right. If you are looking for additional resources around dating, relationships, and building a healthy relationship, please make sure that you check out my website, alignwithallison.com. I will make sure that all of the links and the resources are made available for you in the description, in the notes, so that you have easy access to it. And if you are a single, busy professional woman who is looking to move from being frustrated with dating to happily married, like I've done for so many other women and one man, then please make sure that you join me in my 6-month live coaching program, The Partner You Deserve. In that program, I teach women how to move their mindset, because it's not only where do I go on which dating apps, but there's a shift in mindset around what you deserve and showing up as your best self so that you can be in a committed relationship. My goal is by the end of the 6 months. So beautiful people, make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, share, do all the things so I can show up in the algorithm and I can create more content like this for you. And I hope to see you in the next video.